I haven't enjoyed a Madden game since Madden 64. At least the way I enjoyed Madden 64, Kyle. It was just really something else. DarbyCast, it's Economics Wednesday. Heck yeah, DarbyCast doctors. You are feeling it. Last couple episodes have been pretty sweet. Not gonna lie. Had one of the greatest fans of all time chime in right into me. Said, hey, I've been trying to listen to DarbyCast while working out, but I can't because I'm afraid I'm going to fall off the treadmill because I'm laughing. And I'm like, I like that a lot. I like it. It's a good call. It's a great call. It is. It's a fantastic call. Kyle and I, we're about to go on a road trip. End of this week. Let's get into the economics of road tripping. We are going to go north. How far? All the way to Canada? No. Hard pass on that. Don't need it. Nobody needs that. If somebody ever comes up to you and says, like, I'm going to go all the way up to Canada, you're like, fine, stay there. You're a pig. Nobody wants to do you. You can say that confidently. Because the only kind of people that road trip to Canada, bunch of sloppy pigs, bunch of portly, who gives a rip kind of people. And maybe not even portly in physical stature, but like portly in spirit, gluttonous in spirit. What does that look like? You know what that looks like. Somebody with a fat spirit. But let's just like get into it. Road tripping. I think the destination, Tahoe. Yeah, let's do it. Kyle, what do you say? Economics of Tahoe? That'll be a good show, right? I've got a couple Tahoe stories from growing up. I feel like I could shed some light on what it's like to live in a nice mountain town. Mountain town economics of a mountain town. No matter which way you slice it, at least you're not driving to Canada. But the economics of Tahoe, 254, that's an upper division class. That's graduate level stuff. That's what I'm going to give you insight into today, is a graduate level analysis of Tahoe and a mountain town. Okay? So let's start off with a story. So I used to go up to Tahoe with the boys, and one of my dear friend's parents, who were younger, we needed chaperones. And on this trip, I remember we went to, well, like every trip, we went to Anderson's Split Pea Soup, the restaurant. And that'll stick to your ribs. That will stick to your ribs. Put a little bacon in it and then split pea soup. Eat some bread. Imagine being so thick that you had to cut bread out of your diet. I love bread, and I eat it often. You know how I correct that? Exercising. Imagine turning your back on bread. Going to a place like Anderson's Split Pea Soup, and being like, I'm just going to have the soup. No bread, please. Boy, is that a defeated way to trudge through life. Packing it up on bread. Now, I'm not advocating for you to eat an entire loaf a day. You're probably not going to use that much energy. You understand? Do people understand how weight loss works? Calories in, calories out, simple equation? I don't know. People understand how spiritual obesity works? Gluttonous in spirit. People who drive to Canada. Okay. So Anderson's Split Pea Soup. I enjoy that. About 14 years old. Everybody loads up. We get back on the road right after that. And then a couple hours later, I'm like, I'm hungry. And at this time, Go-Gurt had decided that they were going to get into the peanut butter and jelly game. So I decided, give it a go. I've never had a peanut butter and jelly concoction out of a tube. Why not? So I down a couple of these things because, like, without the bread, not very filling, right? So I'd take down a couple of these PB&J tubes. I had like 5 of these things. That really set me off in the wrong way. Split pea soup and peanut butter and jelly, not okay for digestion. So I'm crop dusting the entire car. And I feel really bad. I feel embarrassed. And I just feel terrible for everybody because I know what I'm doing. I can't help it, but I knew. But then there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Why? That general store. And it's like an hour and a half away from the lake. If you're coming from Southern California, if that's your angle, take the 5, right? There's a general store that sells pies. And I'm going to tell you right now, pecan pie, not bad. Whoever invented pecan pie must just absolutely kick themselves every day for not patenting their process and just printing checks, printing dollars. Surefire way to secure intergenerational wealth is patenting your pie process. Pecans. You know who didn't trademark? If we're going to talk about intellectual property for a quick second, you know who didn't trademark their product? Sriracha. You know what Sriracha's worth now? There was one brand that made Sriracha, and they didn't trademark it. Now everybody makes their own little of Sriracha. Read up on intellectual property if you got a couple minutes. And you'd be like, what's the difference between a copyright, a patent, and a trademark? Sure, all those things seem pretty obvious. To me, I've got a couple trademarks. I got some copyrights. No patents, not yet. Not yet, out of respect. Because as soon as I get into the patent game, it's over. For a lot of people, a lot of companies, it's over. But we're at this general store. I'm going to segue off of Sriracha because that brings me to a pretty important piece of this journey, which is this general store's hot sauce collection. And I don't know how the hot sauce game really works. On the YouTube trending section, they always seem to have videos of celebrities eating ghost chilies and drinking lava. And be like, Will Smith drinks a cup of lava and can't even handle it. And thumbnails just like him crying. But it's actually the thumbnail from him and his interview with his former wife where he got just wrecked. Boy, was that embarrassing. Like, yeah, Will, I actively cheated on you. He was like, okay. It's like, Will, it would have been a good time to give a little pushback. And be like, that was inappropriate. Jada, that was inappropriate. Is that her name? Jada Pinkett Smith? Kyle? Is that like one of their kids or is that the wife? I don't follow Will Smith very much. I keep getting derailed off of my Tahoe story, but I've got to captivate your attention. And that's what an upper division professor would do. You pass out the syllabus to the class, and then you say, this is a guideline. I'm not really sticking to it. You're going to get real instruction here today. Welcome to graduate school. My name is Professor Davison. You're like, did you miss a D? Davidson, right? He says, no, it's Davison. You're like, fuck. This guy sucks. But you listen anyway, like you're doing right now to this story. A lot of hot sauce there at this trading outpost. Ye old general store. My buddies and I, we're not really spicy food guys. We've got, I don't know, kind of fairer complexions. All the jokes are out there. They're true. Caucasian people cannot handle spices. Yeah. That's like well documented. Yeah. You put a little too much pepper on something and we're just like, ew, muy picante. So we see this hot sauce selection and there's a lot of them and they are all categorized by intensity. And what do? We naturally gravitate towards the far end of the heat spectrum. So we go there and we see this one that says Mad Dog. I'm like, oh boy, this is the one. This is it. You know what? Let me just give you a quick note. Anytime you see a product or anything at all named Mad Dog, avoid it. Avoid it. That's a safe bet. It is. Get the hell out of there. If you step foot in a store and they have something called Mad Dog anything, get out. You're bargaining in a game that you just can't afford to lose. So you got to know when to say when. But at the time, we were idiots. We were 14. My belly hurt, and I was like, whatever. I've already done enough damage to myself today. Why don't I just keep it up? We look at the Mad Dog bottle, and on it says it's 400 times, chemically, 400 times hotter than Tabasco. I guess that's supposed to be like a decent reference point. Obviously, that meant nothing to me at that point in time. I'd seen a Tabasco bottle maybe once in my life. You just don't see those. Or I didn't. I was sheltered from the spiciness, the heat, grown up. My folks, they knew they had to protect me from it. They're like, you can't handle this, Maverick. You can't. And I'm like, but I want to try. And they're like, you just don't. Trust our experience. We've been there. 400 times hotter than Tabasco. That is utter gibberish. That's pure nonsense that I just cannot untangle. So I'm like, yep, we'll buy it. I shell out the $80 for like the 8-ounce bottle. At general store, if we're talking about economics at general stores, like maybe you open up a general store. General stores are not killing it, but in a mountain town, on the way to a mountain town, that person, economic genius, entrepreneur, said, this little plot of land could really support a general store. Got access to the highway. We'll stock it with pies and hot sauce. Things aren't necessarily related, but pretty key items. So the chaperones, they pick up a variety of pies. A little pecan pie. And I know it's pecan, all right? Just indulge me for a second in saying pecan. I know it's pecan. I just do. Pumpkin, apple, cherry. Get the works. Get the works. Also, a little bit of a smaller key lime pie. And then a New York cheesecake pie. I know that's kind of oxymoronic, a cheesecake pie, having both cake and pie in the name. Very confusing, but that's what it was. New York cheesecake in a pie dish. It's different. That's how the West Coast does it, though. Very avant-garde when it comes to pie. So, continuing, we get the hot sauce. All of us were pretty excited about this for God knows what reason. And we get to the cabin. We're kind of stretching our legs a little bit. I still have a pretty violent case of the farts as a result of split pea soup and tubed peanut butter and jelly. And I'm like, let's pull out the hot sauce, see what happens. So we put a couple drops on some paper plates, and I put a little too much on there. I put like 3 drops. Everybody else did 1. And we just gave it the old lickarooski, lick it off a plate like an absolute rat. You're just a savage rat. Do it over the sink. Boy, disgusting. But this is the kind of spice that hits you right away. You feel the acidity, the pH of that hot sauce wanting to burn through any organic layer possible. So chemical burns on the tongue immediately. Nasal drip, flowing, free flowing. Start crying. You want to puke. You say, give me some milk. Let's cool this thing off. You do that, nothing doing. I just wanted to puke. Everybody wanted to puke. But I wanted to puke 3 times as hard. I did 3 drops. They did 1. And this is going to lead me into my next story. You're saying, how do you relate that to anything other than just what it is? That's it. Well, for those of you who remember, a mere 2 episodes ago, had wildlife enthusiast, rockstar biologist, Nobel Prize nominee in biology, world explorer, extinct animal revivalist, had Forrest Galante on the podcast. And what did he talk about first thing? When I asked him about his childhood, growing up in Rhodesia, what did we talk about? That's right, ethical wildlife management. He talked about throwing firecrackers from dirt bikes at elephants to say, get off this land. Get off. We're growing crops here, you dummy. The irony of calling an elephant a dummy. We all know how smart elephants are. But up in Tahoe, no elephants. Surprise, surprise. What do they have? Bears. Kyle's looking at me right now and he's like, boy, do they. And so the bears have become quite fond of the area in which we were setting up shop. Some cabins, a cluster of cabins. Think about the inner circle of high caliber cabins, medium circle, timeshares, outskirts, nothing. That's economics for you. Up in the mountain town. I don't know what that really means, but it means something for sure. It does. But the bears, they had become quite accustomed to pulling these little shakedowns of people's trash cans and their barbecues, showing up in a big way. And I wish I had Forrest to bounce this off of, but thankfully I already did, and I'll just relay this conversation to you. I'd like it if you could hear it in his words, but I'll just relay his thoughts after I tell you the story that I told him. Same story. So there were some bears. We were having a barbecue during the day, the following day, grilling up some steaks, putting like just a little bit of pepper on there. Not to overwhelm the taste buds, you know? And who shows up? Smokey and his pal. Boy, do they love barbecue. What the hell? Who ruined raw deer meat for these bears? They're bougie now. They've grown accustomed to the flavor of smoked ribs and steak cooked in truffle butter. Can you blame them? How the hell do you go back to elk? Raw. But what do I know? Maybe raw elk? Who here has bitten a live elk in the throat? Could be the tastiest treat you've ever had. You don't even know it. But these bears abandoned that. And so I'm going to say that the tasty elk, not as tasty as you might think. It's a stretch of the imagination. It is. So these bears, they show up. And we're like, hey, get out of here. Try to make some loud noises. Yeah! Start singing some Evanescence at them. Just, wake me up. Wake me up inside one time. Wake me up and save me. And like in the background, one of my buddies is like, starts singing some Linkin Park at him. One thing, I don't know why. And, you know, that combination, it startled the bears, but they kept pressing forward. And we're like, okay, we got to think fast because we want these steaks and we earned them. These bears, they just show up after the fact. They didn't even hunt this down at a store. Not even going to chip in. Bunch of freeloaders. We don't like that. We don't like that one bit. So what do? We take out the Mad Dog, the hot sauce, the 3 drops that nearly ruined, probably like could have scrambled my brains permanently. Some of you are saying to yourself right now, like, I think something else may have done that. Or maybe this is just the way you are. That's not inaccurate. There's like a screw that's hanging on for dear life. You get it. It's a great place to be. But what do? Mad Dog hot sauce on a steak. We say sack fly. For all you sports fans out there, baseball fans, sack fly. We're going to bring home the run or runs, which we need to win the game. What is that? Eating lunch. And what's that sack fly? $30 worth of that hot sauce on a couple steaks. And we throw them to the bears. They gobble them up. And then we're like, we should get inside, right? Like, this could turn out real wrong. This could turn out super wrong. The most wrong, which is death. Okay? That's economics for you. If you're practicing ethical wildlife management techniques, be safe. Otherwise, you don't live to the next encounter to tell the tale, nor can you monetize your method. You can't patent it either. Or file a trademark for your catchphrase, for your ethical hot sauce enabled wildlife management company. The trademark, be nice, use some spice. Be nice, dish the spice. We'll work on it. Kyle, write a couple of these down. We'll backtrace it. So I tell this to my buddy Forrest, and he's like, different beasts react to hot sauce or heat, something picante, in ways that you wouldn't think. And I say, go on. He says, well, dogs can eat spicy stuff, and their salivary mix-up and their taste bud profile doesn't even faze them. They could eat something real spicy, doesn't faze them. And I say, well, what about bears? He's like, I have no idea. That's a good question. Did we ever see those bears again? No, we did not. No, we did not. When I look back upon this, as an adult, that was pretty, that was inappropriate. Very disrespectful to those bears. We could have found another way to deal with them. But I think that was also a decisive victory The fact that they didn't come back. And that's very telling too, right? Because had they enjoyed it, they would have been back for more, right? They would have been back. Say, hey, we could use a little bit more spice on that, you pussies. The bears are just calling us out with a growl. They're just like, and we know what it means. We do. But we didn't see them again. And I have my reservations even about talking about this because that's a shameful time in my past as well as my friends because they were complicit in it. I was the ringleader, but they were just following orders. Good people just following orders. Catastrophic damage. Potentially, or just a good lesson. Maybe 4 ounces of that Mad Dog hot sauce to a bear was the equivalent to like a little bit of Tabasco to me, which probably would have been equally as damaging and alarming. Bear's salivary profile breaks down hotness, can only taste 1/400th of the level of spice. You just reduced Mad Dog to Tabasco in the mouth. Very sciencey, very sciencey. There's where a patent comes in handy. You harvest bear spit, you extract the anti-spice, and then you've got a little product for, I don't know, Irishmen. If they go to barbecues, English people who go to barbecues and somebody heckles them like, you can't even handle spice. Whitey. Little do those people know. Unbeknownst to them, pre-barbecue, you applied synthetic bear spit spray all over yourself. In the mouth, all over the lips, even in your eyes. Some of you are asking right now, like, why in the eyes? Because of the barbecue flex you're about to pull off. Where you take some of those 7-alarm buffalo wings that your Indian friend he can eat those forever. But for everybody else, it's 7 full alarms. For him, it's nothing. But you say, listen here, VJ. Hey, VJ, get a load of this. And then you eat one, and he's expecting quite a ruckus in your mouth. But you're just like, I'd take another one, VJ, if you would. He hands you 2 more on a napkin. And you take the napkin, it's just drenched in this sauce. And what do? You wring it out in your eyes. And then what do? You stare at VJ and you say, hot enough for you? Faggot. VJ's not gay. And you're like, that didn't feel right coming out. But that's economics. That's the economics of a mountain town. Economics 254. What did I say in the beginning, Kyle? That's important. Economics 254. Economics 275. Economics 391. I don't know what we're going to end up calling this course. Economics of Tahoe. Economics of a mountain town. Economics of hot sauce and synthetic bear spit. We don't stick to the syllabus, not in this upper division course. Notice how cool I am when I say something like upper division. But let's backtrack a little bit. In all seriousness, that hot sauce could have really hurt those bears. And I feel really bad about that. I do. I'm like, dang it. What a mess. And now that I'm bringing this to light in public, putting it out on the airwaves and the internet, you know Tahoe is a mountain town. They might look into it. There might be some mountain attorney named Michael Butcher. Everybody just calls him Butch. He might take issue with that. What is the statute of limitations for the city of Tahoe on experimentation of wildlife management techniques on bears? Because Butch, he lives to come after people who make mistakes. High ethics attorney. He didn't get into it for the money. He got into it for bears, protecting them. Statute of limitations. If it's 15 years, I'm fine. And that's pretty long to be able to be prosecuted. But I understand it. And if I had to go down for anything, I'd say, hey, you can take me down for this. That's fair. I did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing. Or what if it's the right thing? Hard to say. I would need to do further experimentation, but you know that now, like back then, the court system wasn't as shady up in Tahoe as it is now. There's probably like the bear lobby just bribing attorneys with elk meat. And they're just like, yeah, we can't cook it, but you could have it. These attorneys have learned how to communicate with the bears, taught them English. Very dangerous stuff. But that's an economic deal, right? A little bit of skimming off the top. If you're a Tahoe judge or attorney who's in bed with the bear lobby, maybe they have humans representing the bears. Get some activists up there who then launch a counter trademark and say, no, that spice isn't nice. It could be a big legal battle moving forward. I know there's a lot of legal questions going on in our country right now. People are talking like Roe v. Wade. We want to abort babies. And meanwhile, I'm like, bears. To spice or not to spice? That is the question. That's an upper division call out where you're synthesizing Shakespeare and bear law. You're not going to get that anywhere else other than here. You're not, and you know it. You know it. The abortion thing, do I weigh in on that, Kyle? Too hot to touch? Alienate a lot of the audience? If I put my thoughts out there? You're probably right. What if I just went for it anyway? Huh? What do you think about that, huh, Kyle? Like, I feel like there's two things that people never talk about when it comes to the abortion debate. Like, wear a condom and don't have sex with people that you're not willing to have a child with. Think about that. Maybe just like, if I had an unplanned pregnancy with this person, would I be okay with it? And if the answer to that is no, it's like, well, then what are you doing? Be careful out there. And people are like, but what about this? What about when there's criminality involved? And I'm like, okay, we're a different conversation. And what is that, 0.05% or less of the debate? Could be. I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm not an expert. So let me go back to what I am an expert in, which is spicing bears and feeling some guilt about it. And then potentially having to receive a summons in the mail. Somebody shows up to my front door wearing a bear suit and hands me a court summons. Like, you're due in court. And then the bear suit gets unzipped and inside is a bear. I'm like, you went above and beyond. You are good at your job. And then I just give him a steak right then and there. So you earned this. Those freeloaders up in Tahoe, they didn't earn it, but you just did. You put in. What a pro. What an absolute pro you are. So let's just kind of backtrace that. What's the economic message there? Patent bear spit if it has the properties that you need. I'm willing to give away that patent. Remember, I said I'm not getting into the patent game. I'm not yet. So you can have that one. Look up your local laws and regulations over spicing animals. Avoid products named Mad Dog. Eat a pecan pie. And allow somebody who says pecan to say it. Don't roust them when they don't say pecan. It's okay. You're going to be all right. Sometimes people say things different, and you can just allow that. You can, okay? So let's move on to a couple other economic lessons. There are some restaurants up in Tahoe. The Ponderosa. Could be La Ponderosa. What does that mean? Unclear, but it was kind of this saloon and combined the Wild West with Mexican food. Kind of a Texas vibe in Tahoe. They sold cap guns, and they still probably do, and hats that say Ponderosa, straw hats, woven, probably made in China. They're making good margins on those hats and the cap guns. Ethical wildlife management, a cap gun probably plays pretty well, right? You just scare them off. But we're getting into a debate, right, of civilization v. nature. Who was there first? Obviously, it was the bears. So what do you do about that? Do you share the place? Because they don't want to negotiate. They're pretty steadfast in their position, which is get the hell out of here, people, in your cabins. Your timeshares? Bears hate timeshares. Little known fact, bears can't stand timeshares. Let's talk about other industry going on up in Tahoe. Souvenir shops, tie-dye apparel, and tie-dye canvas bags. It's always been booming up there. It has always been booming. And those people, the tie-dye savants, because that's where you go. That is the mecca of tie-dye in the world. If you are a tie-dye artist and you're trying to make something of yourself, or if you just know that like people who are amazing at tie-dye, they are not made, they are born. And if you just know like I was born to tie-dye, you go straight to Tahoe because there's a market there for you. And you join like the tie-dye guild. They teach you some things and they give you some special dyes that you've never even tied with, right? Tie-dye, you get it. The tie-dye community, they've got a lot of respect for the bear community and vice versa. There's never big conflict there because the bears, they see the tie-dye and they're like, this person's pretty relaxed. In the tie-dye community, they don't feed the bears. They never have. So the bears don't even come around there, right? It's these timeshare folk who say, here, have a steak, Mr. Bear. And then they create a barbecue-dependent bear population. Really fucked up. Barbecue welfare for the bears? That's an economic nightmare. For the bears, for everybody. Economic lessons coming in hot in wildlife management. Let me tell you about another kind of fish and game whodunit up in Tahoe when I was a youth. So there's this bridge, okay? It's called Fanny Bridge. Kind of a joke because people lean over and their voluptuous bottoms, if you're up on your tippy toes, all the Instagram girls know this. You go on your tippy toes, really pops the bottom. Makes it look bigger. So Fanny Bridge. I think some people think Fanny means vagina. I've always thought that Fanny means butt. The name of that bridge becomes a little bit crude if it means vagina. I'm like, take it easy, whoever named that. I don't know what kind of action you get on the reg, but I'm going to call the legality of it into question. Okay? So Fanny Bridge has this huge population of trout. Huge. When I say huge, I mean the individual trout. They are massive. Why is that? Because some economic genius decided to put a gumball machine and fill it with fish food, fish chum, these huge pellets, put it right next to the bridge. Economic genius move, repurposing gumball machines. That is an entrepreneur right there. Probably just a side gig of Michael Butcher. Butch. He saw it and he was like, oh, this lane's wide open. Why wouldn't I take it? It's a quarter harvesting factory right there. It's also eco-friendly. No emissions. Economic lesson for you right there. All the environmentalist eyes just lit up. They're like, wow, no way. There's a little solar panel on top. Not even plugged into anything. Just for optics. People are like, that plays. I'll buy some fish food. Things just gobbling up quarters. But people are taking the fish food. They are taking the fish food and they are chumming this water. It's right by a dam. It's by a bridge. And the current, it just makes it a great place for these fish to relax. And very much like the bear population that has been seduced by the timesharists of the region, so have these fish. Unintended consequences. Michael Butcher, he was trying to do a great thing. But in doing so, fattening his pockets, he also fattened the fish. That's right. These trout weigh like 800 pounds, give or take like 750 pounds. Very large. They're big fish. They are. They're huge. I remember my first time peering down into that water. I see the biggest one. I say, wow, your name is Captain Jack. And this was well before the movies, Pirates of the Caribbean movies came out. That fish wasn't named after Captain Jack Sparrow. That fish was just Captain Jack, and it made sense. All my friends were like, yeah, Captain Jack, that plays. my friend's brother and all of his friends who were older than we were. They were seniors. We were freshmen. They were seniors. They were like, yeah, that's Captain Jack. Do you know how validating that is? Do you remember that? If you were a freshman and a senior, it was like, good call, brah. That just makes your year. So my year was officially good back then. That's all it took. The little things in life. Remember that. Economics. So we were like, oh man, do we just catch this thing? Do we catch the fish and eat him, Captain Jack? And then we kind of plotted it out. Me and one of the older guys were like, how do we get this done? If we really wanted to do this right, how do we get Captain Jack? And that fish was so fat and lazy and so stoked on anything that gets thrown in that water. We could have devised a fishing pole, a drop line out of ripped up sheets and a coat hanger, and we could have pulled him out. Zero survival instincts out of that fish. And then we looked at each other and we're like, is this the right thing to do? We were talking about putting on hooded sweatshirts and doing it in the thick of night so nobody would see. And if you have to do something like that, if you have to put on a hoodie to do something that others might frown upon, backtrack it a little bit and be like, is this the right thing to do? I don't know. I don't know. And so eventually we came to an ethical consensus and we're like, it's not right. He's too fucking fat and stupid. We can't take advantage. Let him live out the rest of his life. Did we also spitball with the possibility of liberating Captain Jack? Of course we did. Yanking him out of the water, throwing him back in the lake and being like, get a little exercise, huh, pal? Work off some of that Michael Butcher feed. But we may have missed an opportunity there. That could have been the tastiest fish ever. Michael Butcher, he could have been putting spices, delicious spices, into the food pellets. Captain Jack, he eats it, spice doesn't affect him, goes straight into the meat of the fish. Could have been great. But ultimately, we elected not to. And the tie-dye community, they looked upon that move with respect. Even though we were just travelers, word of our ethics traveled around Tahoe. Tie-dye community got wind of it. A couple of the guys, they were in a gift shop, they were talking about it, and then boom, that news spreads like wildfire. Tie-dye community is just like, do you guys want a free bag? Do you want a shirt? Would you wear these tie-dye jean overalls? And we're like, no, but what an offer. A lesser individual wouldn't have had the discipline to reason that out, eventually arriving upon the conclusion that no, Captain Jack, catching him would not be the right thing to do, no matter how delicious he may be. It's just not right. And who knows the Tahoe statute of limitations on pulling out a fish in such shady circumstances. You know that since that time, maybe he's been caught. Maybe a low ethics angler showed up and just said, I'm yanking that. He didn't even have the conversation. He's somebody who didn't respect nature, doesn't understand the circle of life, symbiosis, never watched Lion King. Never. The original, not the new one. Who cares about the new one? Nobody, right? The old one was great. It was more than fine. Elton John doing a little action on that. Very nice. But imagine a problem angler. What does that even look like? How rough is that? Somebody who's tried to kick their unethical fishing habits so many times. They go to Anglers Anonymous. They say AA, and people think they're alcoholics, but it's actually a lot worse than that. Problem anglers. Fishermen. All their relationships are just so brittle. They've burned so many bridges with people. Their wives, their kids, their friends. The wife says, hey, would you go pick up some laundry detergent? Fred, would you? And Fred just goes fishing instead. Comes back with a haul of salmon. Totally forgot the detergent. Boy, is that a tough conversation. Because you can't wash clothes with salmon. It's a strained relationship Fred has with his wife. His kids have got a soccer game. His son, Timmy, just gets the biggest goal of his life, smokes it past the goalie, who's busy making a dandelion necklace. Pretty lazy goalkeeping, if you ask me. But Fred misses it. He misses it. Shows up at the end of the game, tail end. Game's over. Bucket of largemouth bass. Well, the parents that were there the whole time are like, we're okay, Fred. We got Capri Suns and Oreos. I think that'll do it. Put the bass away, Fred. Get a hold of yourself. You're a mess. Anglers Anonymous, problem anglers, problem fishermen. The problem anglers, that's the other side of the conversation, right? Some people are talking about how do we manage the wildlife? And other people are saying, how do we manage the people? Because this intersection where nature meets civilization, you're going to clash. You're going to clash no matter what. But there's a responsibility on both sides. The bears, they need to get together and have a hard conversation with each other and be like, barbecue should not be part of our diet. It's too good. We didn't pay for it. We didn't earn it. It's not for us. You don't have to take that to the courts to know that makes sense. Bears, settle that issue outside of the courts. And I'm not talking arbitration. I am talking you man up. You have a bear powwow. You can let the tie-dye community mediate it, although it still is not arbitration. The tie-dye community would just show up to be supportive of the bears. It would. And then you've got problem anglers, and then you've got timeshare owners, and, maybe somebody really responsible, maybe you, a DarbyCast doctor, maybe you have to go up there. And you might not be able to get all those folks together at the same time, the timeshare people and the problem anglers. Problem anglers, they're fishing at 4 a.m., 2 a.m. even sometimes, depending on how bad their addiction is. It's going to be tough to relay the message then. So I'm going to need a bunch of you to travel up to Tahoe. You take some people aside. You kind of post outside the timeshare HOA, and as people are coming in and out, just hold a clipboard and have some kind of papers attached to it. Because if you have a clipboard and a pen and a couple papers on that clipboard, people will assume that you are very serious. And what's to say that you're not, right? Because you're going up there with purpose, a mission, and saying, for the economics of Tahoe to flourish, we need to have an understanding between the wildlife and the civilization. And each side is playing a role in it. They play a part. But let's not take this to the courts. Let's just not. Man, there used to be a time that you could settle a wildlife dispute and go straight to the source. Now everybody just wants to mess around and say, hey, Ginsburg, finish it. End this, Ginsburg, in my favor. The narcissism. And now Ginsburg, she passed away. Powerful legislator. Powerful legislator. Notice what I just said, legislator? In the judicial branch? Activist or judge? Question mark. I am getting into dicey territory that's going to alienate a lot of people. They're going to be like, fuck this podcast. Sure, I laughed the entire time and listen to a ton of other episodes, and they're amazing, and this guy always makes sense, even though he doesn't make sense, but it makes a little bit of sense. I'm over it. Imagine being that fragile and naive to think that all of somebody else's thoughts would align with yours. That's what the problem anglers don't get. That's what the timeshare people don't understand. We got to negotiate this. And we're not going to set any legal precedents. We're not going to make any laws out of this. It's just the culture. It's the vibe of the area. Keep Tahoe blue, right? And I don't mean that in a political fashion. I mean, just keep it. They're talking about the lake. Keep it blue. Keep it unfettered. Some person out there listening to this podcast, there's one person who just heard keep Tahoe blue, and they're like, hell yeah, Biden. And it's just like, settle down. It's going to be okay. Keep Tahoe red sounds worse. If you're talking about the lake, very violent connotations of that. And I don't think that's what the people up there are about. No matter what side of the aisle they're on. This is turning into a Politics Thursday, but it's an Economics Wednesday. There's so many economics lessons, but I'm going to pepper in a little politics. Why not? Why the hell not? But let's talk about, could you live in a mountain town? Could you dip out of civilization? Because I know a lot of people are. They're leaving the cities. They're saying, could I hack it somewhere else? I'm scared. You say, yeah, you know what? If you had Wi-Fi, I'm sure you could work remotely. Or if you were a real powerhouse, maybe you open up a general store. Sell hot sauce. Don't sell anything named Mad Dog, for crying out loud. Sell pecan pies. That's fine. Make a split pea soup place and kick people out who decline the bread. Kick them out. Be like, nope, not having it. Get the hell out of here. Maybe you get into the peanut butter sandwich game. You reclaim that market share that Go-Gurt slid into. I'm going to be honest, they never made any headway on that. That was a disgusting product. I hope whoever came up with that got fired immediately. Did they even focus group that? Did they give that to people? Seems like they just rolled it out there like a bunch of morons. You know how gross peanut butter and strawberry jam coming out of a tube looks? You can tell that's a bad idea before you even taste it. Optics, Go-Gurt. Optics. But if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit and you've gotten a business idea or 8 out of this episode, and you're like, you know what, I could make it in a mountain town where those big corporations can't hurt us anymore. Because if there's one thing a Fortune 500 company hates, it's rugged, sometimes jagged topography. They just want some flat area to put up a Best Buy or a McDonald's. They don't want to have to bring a bulldozer up in the Tahoe or go toe-to-toe with Michael Butcher, attorney and fish food aficionado. He hates big corporations. He hates them. He hates them. He's doing well, though. He owns a big lodge. And you can too, okay? If you do business right, high ethics, you pay attention to the pulse of the wildlife management game up there. And maybe, check that definitely. You start a business up there and you go super high ethics wildlife management. You find the way to do it. Maybe you're all cap guns, but you also sell t-shirts, tie-dye t-shirts. So then you're in with the tie-dye community. And occasionally you fish, you post those pictures to Instagram. Maybe you pose in front of a timeshare property. You get buy-in from people. You're just known as this guy who greases the wheels of the whole exchange between civilization and nature. And I think that's going to do it for DarbyCast, because this one went pretty long. It went OT. Send it to somebody who's interested in wildlife management. Send it to somebody who loves intellectual property law. Maybe you send it to a problem angler. Maybe you send it to a mountain attorney. Maybe you send it to a bear. The world is your oyster. Okay? Respect it. Is that the message of this one? The world is your oyster? No, this is about patent law. This is an upper division course. The economics of small mountain towns, parentheses, Tahoe, upper division. Imagine me delivering this. Like, just kind of close your eyes for a second as I wrap this up. Imagine had I just said all of this to you, well, confidently pacing, purposefully pacing, taking key moments to stop and pause and look individual students in the eye and develop a connection with them. Imagine that in a lecture hall. I'm wearing a brown blazer and blue pants, and you're thinking to yourself, not many people can pull that off. And I'm telling you right now, I could. And I don't need glasses, but maybe I would consider it. I'd go to Lens Crafters. That's where I'd go. Somebody starts asking questions during this lecture, this upper division economics course, economics of a small mountain town. And I just lower my non-existent prescription glasses, no ocular correction. And I just lower it. And I say, you can tell a lot about a person based on how they say Caribbean. Like, could you ever go to Disneyland and say, I'm going to go on the Pirates of the Caribbean? Wouldn't be right. Nor would taking a vacation down to the Caribbean, if somebody said, I'm going to just kind of lounge around at Sandals in the Caribbean, boy, do you know that person driving to Canada knows nothing of tie-dye. They know nothing of wildlife management. They own a timeshare, and they overpaid for it. Big takeaways. DarbyCast, Economics Wednesday, back Friday.